The night my husband caught me with another man was the same night he realized he had already lost me. But what shocked him the most wasn't what he saw. It was what I said next. Because instead of begging, instead of explaining, I looked him in the eyes and asked him to get us drinks. Before I continue, I just want to say thank you to everyone watching and supporting this channel. Your love, your comment and present, it means more than you know. Stay with me because the story is not what you think. My name is Tessa and I was married to a man I once prayed for. David was everything I thought I needed. Calm, hardworking, respected, the kind of man people admire, the kind of man families pointed at and said, that is husband material. And for a while, they were right. We had our moments, soft laughter in the kitchen, late night conversations, quiet mornings where everything felt safe. But slowly, things changed. Not suddenly, not loudly, just little by little, he stopped noticing me. Stopped asking how my day went. Stopped looking at me like I was still the woman he chose. And the worst part, he didn't even realize it. Loneliness is a dangerous thing because when your heart is empty, the smallest attention feels like love. That is how it started. I met Daniel on a random afternoon. Nothing special, just a simple conversation that lasted longer than it should have. He listened, not just heard, he listened. He noticed the things David stopped saying, the way I smiled when I was nervous, the way I paused before answering deep questions, the way I tried to act strong even when I was breaking inside, and somehow, without planning it, without meaning for it to go that far, I started feeling alive again. That night, it was raining. Soft, steady rain tapping against the windows like a quiet warning I chose to ignore. The house felt different, too quiet, too heavy. David had traveled for work. He wasn't supposed to be back until the next day, or at least, that is what I thought. Daniel was in my bedroom, our bedroom. Even now, saying that still feels unreal. We weren't laughing loudly. We weren't being careless. It was one of those quiet moments where everything feels suspended in time, where your heart knows you are crossing a line, but your emotions refuse to stop. I remember sitting at the edge of the bed, my fingers slightly shaking. This is not right, I whispered, but I didn't stand up. I didn't walk away, and that was my first mistake. Then it happened. The sound, the front door opening. At first I froze. My heart dropped so fast I thought I might collapse right there. No, I muttered under my breath. Daniel looked at me confused. What is this? But I already knew. There's a feeling you get when your wall is about to break. And in that moment I felt it. Footsteps, slow, heavy, getting closer. Every second felt like a lifetime. My chest tightened, my mind raced. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. Not today, not like this. And then the door opened. David stood there, frozen, silent. His eyes moved from my face to Daniel to the bed. And in that moment, everything shattered. I expected shouting, I expected anger, I expected him to lose control. But he didn't. He just stood there, looking at me like he didn't even recognize who I was anymore. And strangely, I wasn't crying. I wasn't begging. I wasn't even explaining. Something inside me had already changed. Something calm, something dangerous. I slowly stood up, adjusted my dress, looked him straight in the eyes, and then I said the one thing that would change everything forever. We are back early. I paused. My voice steady, too steady. Then I added, can you help us get some drinks from the fridge? Silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room. It breaks it. David blinked once, like he wasn't sure if he heard me correctly, like his mind refused to process what was happening. In that moment, I saw it. The pain, the confusion, the disbelief. But I didn't take the words back. I didn't apologize. I didn't move toward him. Because the truth is, that moment wasn't just about betrayal. It was the beginning of something much deeper, something darker, something he never saw coming. And as he stood there, broken in silence, I realized one thing. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a turning point. David didn't move, not immediately. It was like time had frozen him in place. Like his body was there, but his mind was still trying to catch up with what his eyes had just seen. Drinks? He finally repeated, his voice low, almost empty. That was when it hit me. Not the guilt, not yet, but the weight of what I had just done. Still, I didn't take it back. Daniel shifted uncomfortably beside me. I could feel the tension in the room, tightening, wrapping around all three of us like something alive. This isn't what it looks like, Daniel said quickly, his voice shaky. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was pointless. What does it look like, Daniel? I asked softly, my eyes still locked on David. Daniel went silent because there was no other way to explain it. David finally stepped into the room, slowly. Each step heavy, controlled, like he was holding himself back from doing something he might regret. Get out, he said. He wasn't shouting. That was the scary part. His voice was calm but broken underneath. Daniel didn't argue this time. He grabbed his things quickly, avoiding David's eyes as he rushed past him and out of the room. And just like that, it was only the two of us. The door clicked shut, and the silence that followed, it was louder than anything I had ever heard. David stood there for a moment, staring at the empty doorway. Then he turned to me. Since when? He asked. Simple question, but it carried everything: pain, anger, confusion. I crossed my arms slowly, not to defend myself, but to hold myself together. Does it matter? I replied. His jaw tightened. It matters to me, he said. For the first time since he walked in, I felt something crack inside me. Not fear, not regret, but truth. It started the day you stopped saying me, I said quietly. He frowned, confused. What does that even mean? I took a step closer. You remember the last time you asked me how I was doing? I asked. He didn't answer. Do you remember the last time you sat with me? Without your phone? Without rushing somewhere else? Without making me feel like I was just there? Still nothing. That is when it started. I continued. Not with him, but with you. David let out a short, bitter laugh. So this is my fault now? He said. I didn't say that, I replied calmly. But you didn't fight for me either. That hit him. I saw it in his eyes. I was walking. He snapped, his voice rising for the first time. Everything I do is for this house, for us. For us, I repeated softly. I shook my head. No, David, you were building a life I wasn't even living in anymore. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing the room now. This doesn't make sense, he muttered. You could have talked to me. You could have said something. I did, I said. That stopped him. I did, David. So many times I continued. But you were always busy, always tired, always later. I swallowed hard, my voice lowering. And after a while, I stopped trying. Silence again. But this time, it was different. He wasn't just hearing me. He was remembering. So you replaced me? He asked quietly. No, I said. I found someone who noticed I was already gone. That line stayed in the air, heavy, unavoidable. David looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. Who is he to you? He asked. I hesitated, not because I didn't know the answer, but because I wasn't sure how honest I wanted to be. He's someone who listened, I said finally. Someone who stayed. David nodded slowly, but there was no understanding in his eyes. Only hurt. And the drinks? He asked suddenly. I blinked. What? You asked me to get you drinks, he said, his voice sharper now. Why would you say something like that? I took a deep breath. Because this was the part I couldn't hide from. Because I was tired, I said. Tired of feeling small. tired of being ignored, tired of loving someone who stopped loving me back. My voice didn't shake, but my chest did. And in that moment, I continued. I didn't want to be the one baking anymore. I didn't want to be the one crying. I wanted you to feel it. David stared at me, like the truth was finally sinking in, but it was cutting deeper than he expected. So, this was revenge? He asked. I shook my head slowly. No. If it was revenge, I would have made sure you found out differently. I stepped closer, close enough to see the pain clearly now. This, I said softly, was what happens when something breaks quietly for too long. His eyes dropped. For the first time since he walked in, David had no words, but just when I thought the night couldn't get any heavier, he said something I wasn't ready for. Do you love him? The question hit me harder than everything else, because for the first time, I didn't have an easy answer. And that is when I realized this wasn't just about what I did. It was about what I had become, and maybe what I had already lost. Do you love him? David's voice was quieter now, but heavier than anything he had said that night. The question didn't just hang in the air, it pressed against my chest. For the first time since he walked in, I looked away, because the truth, it wasn't simple, it wasn't clean, and it definitely wasn't something I could hide behind confidence anymore. I don't know, I said finally. That was the most honest thing I had said all night. David let out a slow breath. Like that answer hurt more than a yes ever could. He nodded slightly, but I could see it in his eyes. Something in him had cracked. You don't know, he repeated softly. After everything, you don't know. I swallowed hard, because now the calm I had been holding on to all night was starting to slip. I know how I feel when I'm with him, I said carefully. And I know how I've been feeling here with you. David looked up at me again. And how is that? He asked. I hesitated. But there was no point hiding anymore. Alone, I said. That word. It landed harder than shouting ever could. David looked away this time. His jaw tightened, his eyes blinking rapidly like he was trying to hold something back. I was right here, he said quietly. I never left. I shook my head slowly. No, your body stayed, but you were gone a long time ago. Silence. Deep, uncomfortable, honest. For a moment, neither of us spoke, because the truth had finally filled the room, and there was no space left to pretend. Then David did something I didn't expect. He sat down, right there, on the edge of the same bed everything had just happened on. He looked tired, not angry, not shouting, just tired. I didn't know it got this bad, he admitted. That was it. No defense, no excuses, just a quiet confession. And somehow, that hurt me more than everything else, because a part of me had waited for this, for him to notice, for him to say something like this, but it came too late. I tried to show you, I said, my voice softer now. I didn't just wake up and become this person, David. He nodded slowly. I see that now. But then he looked at me again, and this time there was something different in his eyes. Not just pain, clarity. But you still made a choice, he said. That hit me. Because he was right. No matter how broken things were, no matter how lonely I felt, I still chose that moment. I still crossed that line. I did, yeah, I admitted. No excuses, no running, just truth. David stood up again, slowly, like he had finally made peace with something inside himself. So what now? He asked. That question, that simple question, was the one I had been avoiding all night. What now? Do I fight for this marriage? Do I walk away? Do I go back to pretending? I look around the room, at the bed, at the walls, at the life we built together, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. Not as a room, not as a home, but as a place filled with memories that no longer felt like mine. I can't stay here, I said quietly. David didn't react immediately. He just stood there, taking it in. Because of him? He asked. I shook my head. No, I said, because of me. That was the truth. Not Daniel, not even David. Me. I don't recognize myself anymore. I continued. And I can't fix that by staying in the same place that broke me. Tears finally filled my eyes. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. David nodded slowly, and for the first time that night, he didn't argue. Are you leaving for good? He asked. I took a deep breath because this was it, the final line, the moment everything becomes real. I'm leaving, I said. But where am I going? I looked at him one last time. It's something I still have to figure out. And that was the truth. Because this wasn't a love story anymore. Not his, not Daniel's. This was my story now. I picked up my bag with shaking hands, walked past him slowly, and just before I reached the door, I stopped. Not to go back, not to change my mind, but to say one last thing. I never wanted to hurt you, I said softly. Then I added, but I also didn't want to keep disappearing. And with that, I walked out, leaving behind the man I once loved, the life I once believed in, and the version of myself I could never return. Some endings don't come with closure. Some choices don't feel right, even when they are necessary. But one thing I know for sure is this. That night, when I asked my husband to bring us drinks, it wasn't just the moment he lost me. It was the moment I finally found myself.